Joining us here on BearSports.com is the Washington University head football coach Larry Kindbom. Well, Larry, a big 14-13 win at Wooster on Saturday. Bears win their third straight game. Things are rolling along just fine.
Yeah, Chris, it was a fun weekend. It was a long trip. I think our kids survived the 10-hour drive and basically came out to play and overcame a lot of things during the course of the game. And I think from just a head coach's standpoint, I look at some of that as a maturation of a football team, which every coach knows happens at some point during the season. And I think our football team matured and won a nice game.
Larry, let's talk a little about that game. Special teams played a huge role. There was a blocked field goal in the first quarter, and then Wooster missed the extra point late in the ballgame. Comment on your special teams play on Saturday.
Chris, we've been hanging our hats on special teams all the way through this season, and we know we have great specialists, and we feel like we have good coverage people, we have good return people, and now all of a sudden it shows up in the field goal block unit. That was obviously huge during the course of the game to have a guy that doesn't usually get through because he's usually in a position to be blocked, John Schneider. As they were taking care of business with some of our outside people, John worked his way through, and it was a tremendous block and had a great impact on the game. And in some ways, I think it maybe even had an impact on the miss later on because he kicked it away from where the field goal had been blocked. That's the difference in football.
Yeah, you mentioned John Schneider. Let's talk a little about this senior class. Tom Goulias had two spectacular catches on Saturday. Schneider had that big blocked field goal. Talk about how driven the senior class is to end their career on a high note.
Well, I'll tell you where it shows up because I think our kids have been playing hard here over the years. I think there's a sense of maturity with meeting the theme of the year, which is our theme for the year is finish. These guys are finishing up their 4 years. John Schneider, I think, is a classic example. We see the field goal block, but his play during the course of the game, he makes a big tackle for a loss at a key moment during that football game. But he's also our special teams player of the week because of the 2 tackles he made on the kickoff team. And that's when your seniors are getting the production part as well as the leadership. And John, I think, represents pretty much our senior class that way, that they're not just guys that are good leaders, but they're also producing on the field, and I think that's the best model you can have for your underclassmen.
Larry, the Bears a month ago were sitting at 1-2 after that disappointing loss at Wittenberg. What has changed with this football team in the last month? And you guys have won 3 straight games and playing good football.
I've been asked that a lot, and I'm going to begin by saying I don't think we're playing any harder than we were before. I think we've had maybe just a little bit better results, Chris, but not to the extent that we're a different football team. We really aren't. I think the word I used earlier, maturation, I think that we have matured as a football team, and some of those plays that maybe we didn't finish in the beginning of the year, we're finishing now. Obviously, our quarterback has really stepped up each week and has become a better football player, and we've had some young guys step in that in the beginning of the year hadn't had enough opportunities or even game time experience that are now becoming people that are important for us. Tate Byers and Scott O'Brien being able to come in the secondary and play to the level they're playing, and a guy like Chris LaBarge, who last year really didn't step on the field. Those 3 guys have handled a one position that we just felt coming into the year was going to be the key for some of our success on defense. And as I speak of one area, I could speak of so many different areas on the field where that has happened. But I think the involvement of our young guys and obviously the maturing of our upperclassmen, I think, have been the difference.
Larry, we talked about special teams against Wooster. The offense was tremendous against Wabash. How about the defense? They're allowing 15.5 points per game, and they were left in some difficult situations against Wooster. It seems like they've gotten better each week.
Yeah, and they have. Again, I think they are part of the whole process we've been talking about earlier. But to be very honest, our football team this year has been operating like a team. The reason our defense is doing so well, or part of that reason, is the fact that our offense does control time on that clock, and it takes moments away from our defense having to be out on the field. in the same light, our defense had their backs to the wall a couple times early. We had 2 interceptions right off the bat, and we know the last time that happened was at Wittenberg. And to make the resolve, I think, with the defense to be able to say, okay, we don't want to be in this position, but we've got to do some good things. And our defense really fought their way out of both those situations early in that football game. Is, to me, more important than how many points that were given up. Because as long as your defense can come in and throw up a wall against a really good offensive football team, you always have a chance to win. And over the course of the game, I think with the way our offense goes, teams hopefully won't be scoring that many points. They're not going to get as many chances. Now to know your defense can put up that wall, I think the combination of those two could be the championship game.
Larry, last question for you. You have a tough Overland team coming to town this Saturday at 1 p.m. It's Parents' Weekend. It should be a tremendous atmosphere. Talk a little bit about the atmosphere that we'll have on Saturday, and also a little about this Overland team who's played a very tough schedule.
Well, the Overland, to address that part of it first, I mean, they are a very, very good football team. They're not deep in terms of numbers. They don't have a great amount of numbers on that football team, and yet they've gone up with what I think is one of the toughest schedules, certainly of any of our opponents that had to play, having to go against Wittenberg and Case and Wabash like week after week after week. And to be able to be challenging in each of those football games at the end of those games, they're pretty good. You have to be pretty good to do that. That's not something that happens by happenstance. They got a good quarterback. They got some good receivers. They drove the ball in Wabash. Not a lot of teams do that, where they actually held on to the football and took the ball down the field and scored. And then defensively, they've had flashes of brilliance, and they've had some moments where they gave up some big plays, but we see that week in and week out they're getting a little bit better in that area. So it's a good opponent for us to be playing right now. They're going to make us have to win the football game, or they're going to win the football game. I don't think it's going to be a case of either team losing a football game, and they're aggressive that way. I like to play aggressive football teams. I would bet that special teams are going to be in the forefront of that game. In terms of atmosphere, it's fun, but you put that to bed right after the game's over, and I think our kids were tired after the game, and there wasn't a lot of time for celebration, just because they know they played a football game. Worcester made us play for 60 minutes, and I think both teams are probably pretty tired after that game. It came down to the wire, so there wasn't a moment to rest, relax, and think the game was decided at any point. So our kids really didn't have much of a chance to celebrate, and that bothers me sometimes, because I think you should feel good about the amount of work you do. But in the same light, they'll be ready. I sense the maturity part again, stepping forward, and when you're ready, it's fun. That's the difference. When you know you're prepared, it doesn't matter how the game comes out, win, lose, or draw. It's going to be fun, and our kids are going to have fun Saturday.
Larry, thanks for joining us, and good luck on Saturday against Overland.
Thank you, Chris.